Before we begin, we want to acknowledge that some stories and discussions in this episode of Radiant Resilience may touch on sensitive and potentially triggering topics. These may include themes of traumatic brain injury and concussion discussion, post concussion syndrome, mental health challenges after career loss, brief mentions of potential long term effects like CTE and emotional dysregulation, and medical misdiagnosis or lack of proper treatment. Our goal is to share real life experiences in a respectful and empathetic manner, offering insights into the complexities of the human spirit and the journey towards resilience. However, we understand that some content might be difficult for listeners. We encourage you to prioritize your well being and discretion when deciding to listen. Please remember this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice or support. If you find yourself needing assistance, we urge you to seek help from qualified professionals or trusted support systems. Your mental and emotional health is important to us. Thank you for your courage and for joining us in a space of understanding and compassion. Welcome back, everyone, to Radiant Resilience. I have a very special guest today, which I keep saying, I think all of my guests are special these days. I have Lewis Simon with me today. He is a native of Evanston, Illinois, was once a young, promising hockey player. Throughout Lewis's youth hockey career, he unfortunately suffered multiple concussions. Upon his third year of junior hockey, Lewis had to call it quits due to one final blow to the head. He now suffers from POTS syndrome and ever since has been an advocate for head safety in youth sports. Lewis didn't let the setback stop him as he went on to be accepted to Northwestern University. As a student in the Chicago area, Lewis built out his Sty House brand and began his coaching career. In addition to the apparel side of Sty House, Lewis founded Sty House Sports Camp and Sty House Hockey. Alongside his roles as a student and with Sty House, Lewis became the youth director and two-team head coach at the Chicago Reapers AAA hockey organization. As Lewis continues to grow the Sty House brand and work with the Reapers, he has also taken on a full-time position at Wasserman Hockey, an agency that represents some of the best NHL talent in the game. At Wasserman, Lewis has aspirations of becoming a high-level hockey agent. That is a lot of hockey in there, Lewis, but thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Tawny. That was an awesome introduction.
Yeah.
Definitely all things hockey. So I
Yeah.
think we know where this conversation's going.
Yeah, but I think we're going to have a lot of good conversations here today. So why don't you start off by telling us maybe about how you got into hockey and a little bit of an overview of your hockey growing up, and then, of course, your injuries that you got while doing that.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually interesting because my mom's from the South and my dad's from the East Coast, and neither of them played hockey growing up or even really knew what hockey was. So I got into it just based on going to a public skate and wanted to try it out. My parents got me involved. I ended up choosing to be a goalie, and from there on, just enjoyed playing in the Chicagoland area. Yeah, so for me, my hockey journey was a lot different than others. I grew up in a household that didn't have any hockey background. My family didn't play. My siblings didn't play. My parents definitely didn't play. My mom's from the South, so she was football and baseball. But that being said, I started at a young age and I ended up choosing to be a goalie. And I don't know if much about being a goalie, but it's definitely, I would say, the most nerve-wracking position for parents and even for myself. So I
That's
grew up,
interesting because I feel like you would get hit less as a goalie. Is that obviously they're throwing the pucks at you like crazy because that's the point of the game, but
yeah,
that's interesting because I would think you'd get hit more and knocked over more and more fights and stuff like that if you were not a goalie.
yes, I was a little bit of an aggressive psycho goalie. So I don't think I, I don't think I helped my cause for the later on concussion issues. However, it's definitely, you like to think it's definitely a position that gets less blows to the head. but I think it was a little bit of also a mixture of lacrosse as well and just repeated hits from pucks and things like that. Anyways, I didn't have concussion issues in my youth at all that I can remember. So I grew up in Chicago, as I said. I played throughout my youth in Chicagoland, and then I ended up moving out to the East Coast when I was 15 to pursue hockey, living with a host family. And at 16 was my first diagnosed concussion.
Oh, wow.
So again, we don't know what happened prior, but yeah, I moved out to the East Coast, and 16 to 20 was that range of concussion, about 5 diagnosed concussions.
Do you think it's because like with kids, maybe we're a little bit more safer around that? Or did it get more
Um,
aggressive did you get more competitive once you hit 16?
yeah, I think there's two answers to that. I think the first is the education amongst young coaches and coaches that are volunteering per se. There's not much when it comes to concussion. As a coach now, when a kid falls and hits his head, I see it all the time. He goes back in line or he goes back to the bench and nothing's said. And he's probably okay, but you don't know. And so for us, for my organization at Sty House, and then also for the Chicago Reapers, we have a zero tolerance where if a kid hits his head and he says his head hurts, he's done for the game or done for the
Mhm.
practice, no matter what.
Yeah.
And I'd love to say that every program does that, but I don't think they do.
So what happened when you got your first concussion? And then what were your symptoms after that and everything?
Yeah, concussion's a scary thing because it affects your brain. So you can't, it's not a broken arm where you see an x-ray and you have a procedure where you get better. I was young, I was 16 years old, and I didn't even know what a concussion really was, to be honest, which is a problem in its own self.
Yeah.
But you just feel off. I was dizzy, I was light sensitive, and you just don't feel like yourself. So it took a couple weeks to get over, but I recovered. I'd like to say close to 100% and was able to get back to hockey and just play. And so what?
And then how many did you have between that 16 to 20?
5 diagnosed. So
Okay.
the fifth was the big one. But like I said, I think it's one of those things where I remember calling my dad, who's mentor to me, one of my best friends to this day. And nothing against him, but again, a guy that didn't know much about concussions. I remember calling him throughout my juniors and my youth in Pittsburgh and New Jersey and being like, "Hey, I just don't feel right." And he'd be like, it's probably just you didn't sleep well." And
Mm.
then a couple weeks would go by. And I'd call him after practice. That was like a ritual. I'd call him around like 1 or 2 p.m. after practice during the week. And I'd be like, "Dude, like it's something's not right."
Mm.
And you probably just, yeah, I don't know, go sleep it off. And I would, and I'd wake up and I'd feel better. But looking back, those were concussions.
Uh,
And that's why I am where I am today. And it all revolves around the education, I think, and the awareness to youth, really, because as you get older, there's plenty of doctors, trainers, and research around professional or collegiate athletes with concussion.
so tell me about the fifth and final one. What happened and all the things surrounding it.
Oh yeah. I don't remember all of it,
Mm.
but I was in New Jersey. It was a practice. I took for the listeners that don't know that much about hockey, the puck is a solid object that when it hits direct on you or hits you anywhere and it's directly with no padding, it hurt.
Mm.
It's not like a softball.
Yeah.
So as a goalie, when you get a puck directly to your head,
Mm.
you get a little stinger and you shake it off. And that's like a common thing. You ask any goaltender in any league, oh, pucks to the head, stinger, whatever. This was a one-timer, they call it, and it was a very hard shot straight to the middle of my eyes, like in between my eyebrows and my hairline.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I just remember falling over and waking up, and I don't know where I was. And from that point on, I think it was like about a week later, I came back home, and that's when it all went downhill from there. But
A week later?
yeah, a week later, I flew home. Week to 10 days
Okay.
later. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I rest. I was in Jersey. I was like the next day I was able to walk to a Starbucks. I'm not saying I was like, but I was messed up bad.
Yeah.
And so I came home and saw some doctors in the Chicagoland area, and that's when the career was over after those meetings.
And what did they tell you?
It was pretty straightforward. I saw a neurologist, and then I saw more of a sports, I would say, neurologist. And both of them tested me for different things. And I was diagnosed with POT syndrome, which can be caused from too many concussions, along with other things as well. And the risk of having serious brain injury for life would be greater if I kept playing. And so I decided to hang them up and start my life, really.
That had to be at 20 years old. Is that when that happened?
Yeah, 21, yeah.
When you think your entire life is going to be this hockey-filled dream that you had your whole childhood, and then it's just taken away like that.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was that pretty
Yeah.
devastating? Were you
I
depressed
mean,
for a while?
Tawny, like, to be honest with you, I like to think I'm well-rounded, traveled, came from a great family. But that being said, hockey was like everything, literally my whole life. Like, I moved at 15. Yeah, I finished high school, but like hockey was my thing. I
Mhm.
was going to go play in college and hopefully play pro hockey. That was my thing. I loved every part of it, from being with the boys to being on the road to practicing and all that. So, yeah, it was hard. It was tough. It
Yeah.
was tough, but I have a really good support system and was able to quickly pivot into, all right, it's done after the tough, I would say, couple months, and really be like, all right, you got one life and you got to move on. And I always said I was gonna make it now farther than I did playing, but behind the scenes.
Hmm.
And now I'm sitting in the Wasserman Hockey office in Chicago, and here I am. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. So let's talk about, okay, first off, tell me what is POT syndrome? Tell me that.
POT syndrome is something that affects your heart rate, and along with just some day-to-day dizziness, and I would call it brain sensitivity to things. The main one is it's an elevated, you get an elevated heart rate. So I have to be very careful with certain workouts and not
Ah,
pushing myself too hard, because you can pass out really easily. And I've been able to really hone in on what causes my symptoms. But POT syndrome is something that I'm going to live with potentially for my whole life, but it's something that with proper treatment can be almost cured.
okay.
So I'd like to think I'm doing much better than I was 3 or 4 years ago. But yeah, it's definitely something I live with.
Is
So,
that a common thing that goes along with concussions? It's not. Okay.
yeah, you think concussion, you think CTE.
Mhm.
CTE is obviously something that can be way more life impacting than POT syndrome. However, it's on the similar realm of people dealing with it for potentially the eternity of their life. But yeah, it's definitely not as common side effect as some and as most things when it comes to concussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did a deep dive then into concussions after that. And I think it's becoming more and more talked about with football and hockey and a lot of sports. And I think that I hope that they've worked on the technology of helmets and stuff like that. But some of these sports are just aggressive, right? And it's just going to happen. Tell me what that journey was like after you got yours and what led next after that.
Yeah, it's twofold, because that the period of no college and post concussion, so that period of like almost a year really was, I took advantage of it in a way where, like, I always wanted to start a company, and I love clothes, and I'm like, I just dealt with these horrible concussion things. So how can I like educate youth on not turning like into someone like me? And so I was able to do a deep dive in the concussion space, yes, but more so how to impact young athletes and get to their parents prior to multiple concussions happening. And then alongside that, I was able to create a clothing line, which is more of a passion project, and I donate about 10 to 15% of proceeds to the Concussion Legacy Foundation every year. And Yeah, that's how the Sty House brand started.
Yeah. And now it's just taking off. It sounds like you've got all different
Yeah,
branches of
we're
it.
getting there. We're getting
Yeah.
there.
So, what if you're a parent of a kid who's playing one of these aggressive sports? What is your advice to them to look and what to look for and stuff like that? Hi, friend, and welcome to this episode of Radiant Resilience. We are always looking for new guests on the podcast. I want to highlight you if you have a story of resilience that inspires others. Everyone has a story, and I believe that sharing yours can help others feel less alone. Are you ready to share your journey and inspire others? I want to hear from you. Every story has the power to impact lives and foster a supportive community. If you have a tale of overcoming adversity, personal growth, or a unique perspective on life's challenges, I would love to have you as a guest on the podcast. To become a guest, please email us directly at radiantresiliencepodcast@gmail.com or click the link in the show notes to become a guest. Join us in spreading hope, strength, and inspiration one story at a time. Be brave and share your story so others feel less alone. I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, people ask me this all the time. Should Johnny even play hockey or football? I'm like, yeah, he should.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey's the greatest sport of all time. Football's a great sport. You shouldn't be scared of these things. I just think the proper education is what's needed.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, I think it's first off, super cliche, but an easy one is having the proper helmet. Spend the extra money and get a new helmet every year. Trust me.
Okay.
Like that is like the super easy thing that you don't need to have any knowledge on.
They
Uh,
still have like shit helmets on the market.
yes,
That
yes,
seems
they have
like
shit helmets.
that's what did we start taking BPA out of children's plastic toys? Shouldn't we just have like good helmets for kids and make it not even an option?
Yeah, no, there's plenty of crappy helmets out there.
Mhm.
So again, I think that's an easy one. Spend the extra money, make sure you have the best helmet out there. And then other than that, it just comes down to this awareness and having people like me who have gone through it speak to
Mhm.
organizations or have resources where if you think there's a concussion that's happened or your kid might have one, reach out because sometimes a trip to the doctor isn't necessary. It's you don't have to overplay it. But again, I think it just comes down to this awareness and education words and making sure that parents of young kids, even 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds are aware of like concussion can happen at this age.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it a compounding thing, concussion? So if you
Yeah.
get one and then you get another, it just gets worse and worse each time.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the issue.
Yeah.
So if you get one, it's not treated. You get another, now it's not treated. Then you treat your third one, you're already like two behind.
Yeah.
So your brain's already has taken on two or three big hits to no treatment.
Yeah.
That's what happened to me.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that yeah, the compounding issue with concussion is major.
So if you're a parent and you think that your kid had a concussion, fell down, hit his head, whatever, got hit really hard, then you said a doctor's visit isn't that necessary. What are some things that you can do if you recognize that and it's mild or whatever? Is resting the best thing, or are there other things you can do?
So don't quote me on this, but I believe research says resting's the worst thing you can do.
Oh, okay.
Concussion.
JK, don't do
Yes, don't go do anything crazy, but just sitting in a dark room, I think is outdated.
that. Okay.
And I would say though, just to go back, that happens all the time, every day. Phone calls of a parent, hey, Johnny fell, his head hurts. Is he okay? Okay. Is he 9? Is he 12? Is he 16? Just the age changes things
Okay.
because of the severity of what the hit or what happened. But I would say to a kid between 12 and 16 years old, that sort of that range of when hitting starts and things get more intense and guys get heavy or whatever, it's more of a situation to situation and how bad the hit might have been.
Mhm.
But if there was a trainer there, the
Mhm.
trainer should be able to have, hopefully, the knowledge of the next step. If there's not a trainer there, like I said, doctor visit isn't necessary, but if there's any concern of symptoms after a couple hours, you got to go
Yeah.
because you don't want to have anything bad happen. So,
What does treatment look like for that then? If you do go to the doctor,
for a mild,
obviously, yeah, let's go mild concussion. Obviously, that varies based on what is happening, but let's just go mild for now.
yeah. So for a mild concussion, which that's what I was treated for, it varies person to person. For me, what helped me the most was hyperbaric oxygen chambers.
Ah, okay.
Don't exactly ask me why, but I believe it's something with oxygen into the brain. And then vestibular therapy.
Okay.
So you can get scripts to go to a local physical therapist, and they can put you through some vestibular therapy that helps stimulate the brain and gets your eyes moving the proper way. And then there's all these other things, but those two were the main two that helped me.
Okay.
For young kids, I would say there's no magic to it. It's like a waiting game.
Yeah. Ugh. And then I did watch that movie Concussion. I'm sure you've seen it, the football one.
Yeah.
What is it about? They were really showing all those football players like after all the concussions they've had and obviously having some brain trauma going crazy in their older years. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's the scary thing.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
There's spouses that I hear, they're like, I don't even recognize my husband.
Mm.
He's got tempers and all sorts of things.
Yeah, because you now are dealing with NHL players, or so what does that look like for the adults too?
Yeah, again, it's CTE is the first thing that comes to mind there. CTE affects you greatly in all areas, and there's all different stages. There's stage one, two, three, and so forth. But if one gets enough concussions, some of these side effects as they are older, I know firsthand are that what you talked about, anger,
Yeah.
temper, obviously forgetfulness, but it's real. It's real.
And can you do anything about it at that point, or are you too far gone at that point?
I think there's some cures being out there that hopefully, like, I think there are people working on cures I want to keep using the CTE word because that's what
Yeah.
it sounds like a lot of this is where it's going. But
Mhm.
honestly, right now, no, there's really not much to my knowledge. Just getting proper help and therapy and things like
Yeah.
that. But the flip of the switch, the anger flip and the moodiness is really hard to control.
Ugh.
I even notice myself sometimes.
Yeah. And it's just the way that you're reacting. It's just the way like you can't even control it. Your brain's just doing it, right? Because there's been so much damage done.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a funny thing, but not really. Like my sister, she's always like, why are you so mad all the time? And it's not like I'm not mad, but sometimes I flip quick.
Yeah.
And it's not nothing to do with her. It's
Hmm.
just something I can't necessarily control.
When you like after the fact and you look back on it, are you like, oh,
Yeah.
I probably
Yeah.
overreacted? Okay.
Yeah. It's bad.
Mhm.
I'm not like that. I'm the most chill guy.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I flip, bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm working on it.
And you said you had 5 diagnosed
Yeah.
concussions. You think you had more?
Oh yeah.
Way more.
Way more. I was, yeah. But again, like that was even throughout junior hockey where we had world-class trainers. And that's a problem that
Yeah.
they were not able to. I didn't know.
Yeah.
My coaches didn't say anything. I just kept playing.
Yeah. And I think especially when you get to those higher levels of sports, especially you watch it on, I'm only referencing football because I watch more football than I do hockey, but you see it all the time where like those people get hit so hard. They go shoot them up with something and then put them back on the field because they're paid a lot of money to do that and they better get their butts out there. And I think they fight it too as the players. They're like, no, I'm going to go back out there. I'm going to win this game. I'm going to do it. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And I think there's so many moving pieces to that. That's got to be so hard to make those people sit down and not play. I know the NFL is trying to get better about their concussion protocol, but I'm sure the NHL is too.
Yeah, for sure. It's yeah, I mean these guys are passionate.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
could be a big game. It could be a must win. You name it. And I've been there and I get it 100%.
They're like, let's just think about the consequences later. I don't want to think
Yeah.
about that right now. Right now, I want to win this game and I want to be the best player there ever was. And I
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, for sure.
oh, it's so scary. But I am glad it's being talked about more and more. I actually watched have you seen that docuseries on Netflix about Vince McMahon and the WWE?
I have not.
Okay, so it was super interesting docuseries for one. He's an interesting human being. But towards the end of it, as time went on and we started learning more about concussions, they were talking about those pro wrestlers, their concussions too. And they had to start changing things. Like they don't do the one thing they talked about was they don't do the hit each other over the head with the chair anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
signature move in like the
Yeah.
80s and the 90s for them.
Yeah.
But like things like that. So it is nice to see that there's a lot of things in pro sports changing for that, because then hopefully that's a trickle down into kids sports and everything too.
For sure. Yeah, I remember watching those YouTube videos of guys getting hit with chairs and all sorts of stuff back in
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah. And they said it was like fake-ish, but also a lot of those wrestlers were like, no, I've had 15 surgeries in my life. And so physically they were slamming their bodies onto tables and stuff. It was crazy. Anyway, side tangent. But what is your advice for people who aren't finding the help that they need for it?
Yeah, I would say my biased opinion would be to reach out to the Concussion Legacy Foundation, and they've got doctors in their team. And honestly, hopefully after you talk to them, you get some answers. They were a lifesaver for me, and they're from top to top down. That the whole foundation is couldn't they're unbelievable people and human beings. So I would say the short answer is that, but it's really just sometimes you have to find the right fit and find the right, like I said, like for me, vestibular therapy worked and hyperbaric chamber. What didn't work was taking certain medication and doing these sort of exercises or whatever.
Yeah. So obviously each individual situation is different.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about Sty House.
Yeah. Sty House, as you mentioned, it's got a bunch of branches and it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily all cohesive, but they've all been under Sty House and it's all been a way for me to make a little bit of money in college and so forth. So it initially was a youth clothing brand and it expanded to adults a little bit for maybe a year or two. I soon realized that the market for adult clothing is pretty crowded, especially with
Mm,
the Lululemons and the Aloes and the Vioris of the world, where that was my space. That's the
yeah.
stuff that I'm trying to make. So I've focused and stuck to the youth.
Okay.
And then alongside the clothing brand during COVID, I started in quotations Sty House Sports Camp, when it's
Okay.
really just Lewis neighborhood sports camp that I put under Sty House.
Okay.
And it ended up expanding to 30 kids and different groups and morning sessions and afternoon sessions. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it was really a great way to do some things during that sort of the end of the COVID stuff before
Hmm.
kids were fully back to activities and so forth. And then most recently, I've launched Sty House Hockey.
Okay.
And Sty House Hockey is youth tournament teams, camps, clinics, video sessions, private lessons, all things hockey with young athletes. And I've got a whole team behind me that works for Sty House Hockey, and yeah, it's been great.
That's awesome. What does the STY stand for?
It stands for Strengthen the Youth.
Oh, I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
That's awesome. So how long have you been doing it, the Sty House?
Since 2021 is when it started, but I'd say 22 is when it picked up.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're still going.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Congrats on that. I know it's hard I don't know, business is hard, right? Like it's
yeah,
hard to start a business. It's hard to keep it going. I just saw a stat the other day that was like now that we're having the highest numbers in the US of people like starting their own businesses and registering business names. And then I think I saw that in 5 years, 90% of those will close.
Yeah.
So from the year they start them, 90% of those will close by year 5. So
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to keep going and put the work into,
Yep. For
but it
sure.
helps
And
if you have a passion for it.
it does. If you have a passion, I think you can do anything in life.
Yeah.
So it's been fun because when I was at Northwestern, I've used Sty House as an outlet I'm used to hockey and school and life and dating and you name it. And
Mhm.
when hockey was taken away, I had all this free time. I don't
Yeah.
like free time, Tawny. I don't do well with free time.
Yeah.
So Sty House was that outlet where I was able to have a passion of something, and I really honestly started from ground up, like no, like really did. I didn't take a dollar from anybody, and it was a fun project at first that turned into a business.
And are you still donating to the
Yes,
Concussion Foundation?
yes,
Okay,
yeah,
so anybody who wants to purchase your clothing, which we will link in the show notes for sure, you're donating to a good cause too.
yes, you are.
Do
Yes,
you
you are.
have any siblings or nieces and nephews that play hockey or any other sports?
Yeah, it's funny. My sister was a beast hockey player. She's
Ah.
younger than me, but she was a stud. Could have played in college. Actually, I think was committed to Michigan State and then ended up going more the sorority and college fun route, but that's okay. She's ended up on her 2 feet living in Chicago. But yeah, my sister played, and other than that, no one else in my entire family.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So you guys
Yeah.
were really hard into it and good at it, it sounds.
Yeah, she was a beast. Yeah. So
Is it just the two of you? Do you have other
yeah,
siblings?
just us.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. It very commonly seems like the younger siblings are typically better than the older
Oh,
siblings. I don't know.
95%.
Why is that?
Oh, I could tell you 100 reasons, but first child, nice, just get learning the ropes. Parents might not know exactly what's the best route to take, the best development, whatever it might be. And then the second child comes in and is scrappy and has to fight the older brother or older sister and gets the better path and gets all the hand-me-downs at a younger age. And it's just how it works usually.
I know it's so interesting though, because it's like you're coming from the same family. You're like the genetics are there. Like it's not, I don't know, but I have two younger sisters, and my middle sister was we were dancers growing up, and she was the better dancer 100%. And I see it in so many families. I'm sure you working with kids too, you see it all the time in
Yep.
families.
All the time. It's crazy.
Yeah. Is there any resentment from the older siblings? Like, oh, my younger brother, of course they're better.
Of course, yes, but it's funny because these older brothers, and I work with a lot of older brother dynamic duos where I've got both kids, whether it's at Wasserman or Sty House or mentoring or whatever it might be. And I deal with a lot of brother duos. And these older brothers, your classic firstborns, are just whatever. Yeah, my brother's better than me. I don't care.
Feel like that's totally an older sibling mentality because I feel
It's
like I was
so
like that too.
funny.
It never bothered me that my sister was better than me.
Yeah,
It just was.
yeah. And it's like the older brothers, they go watch the younger brothers play, but the younger brother never comes and supports the older brother. It's like, what's going on here?
Oh man. That's so interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
I kind of want to dive into that deeper. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe we should do a statistical analysis on that.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. Yeah, we've got friends that have 4 children that are pretty heavily into sports. And yeah, the second brother, it's 2 boys that are older, 2 girls that are younger. And the oldest one is a boy, and then the next one's a boy. And the second one is way better at basketball than the first one. They're
Yeah,
both good, but I don't know. I don't know what it is.
that's hilarious. Yep. It happens everywhere.
So, what is it like working at Wasserman?
I'm so happy. It's
Yay.
the best. Yeah, it's a dream.
Yeah.
It's a dream, and it fell into my lap. I interned throughout Northwestern each summer. I did an internship in football, an internship in music, because they have a music division. And then I did an internship in hockey.
Hmm.
And after that internship at hockey, there wasn't going into my senior year at Northwestern, there was legit no openings.
Hmm.
And like halfway through my senior year, there was a new position coming out,
Hmm.
and it was new position in Chicago in Wasserman Hockey, and fell into my lap. So it's amazing how all that works, and I've got an amazing team and great people I work with, and it's definitely hopefully going to be my career.
Amazing. So what are
Yeah.
you seeing difference wise? So now you're working at a professional level in the hockey
Mhm.
world. So comparing that to the kids world and stuff like that, as far as the concussion awareness goes, are all those conversations still being had and everything like that?
Yes, I would say that over the past couple years, it's really taken a step up from just my observations.
Okay.
Whether it's coaching staff, athletic training staff, or just any personnel that has to do with the team, it's talked about, it's treated serious. Anytime I'm at a game, a kid gets hit, head, whatever, on the ice, stands up, falls, like you see immediate training right there.
Hmm.
They're going to the hospital, whatever it might be. And so I think for the most part, it's really taken a nice lead.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and like obviously at Wasserman, I'm dealing with kids from right now, mainly every day is kids from like 14 to 16 would be
Okay.
like mainly what I'm dealing with. And a lot of these guys are, all of them are playing youth hockey still. For the most part, I've been really happy, and I think I could say most people have been happy with what they see if a kid gets hit.
That's
So
good.
yeah,
And then talking about it, being very open and honest about it with the kids and
yeah,
that's got to be so hard to tell these kids. You were one of those kids, right?
yeah,
To be like, you're out for a week,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
even
happened
though
to
they're
me.
like, I feel fine. I want to play.
Yeah. A couple weeks ago, I was with he's 15. He got hit. He didn't feel right. Got undressed, and he came out to the lobby, and I'm fine. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. And his pupils are massive. He's his head shaking. I'm like, you're not fine, dude. And so again, I don't want to say what would happen if I wasn't at that game. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe
Yeah.
would have gotten back dressed again. I don't know.
So is it something we still need to work on even more safety around then
I think
and knowledge?
yeah, I think there can never be too much safety and knowledge on that.
Yeah.
But not to boast about me, but I can only go to so many schools and so
Sure.
many programs and so many hockey conferences. There's a lot of people out there that have suffered from what I've suffered from, and just in general concussions. And I think that to get more people, young people that can talk about it and relate to these kids, that the kids are sick of hearing a 50-year-old guy speak about how to help with a concussion. And it's in one ear out the other.
Yeah.
But if a guy like me, a younger guy, under the age of, let's call it 30, can come in and relate and be like, hey, boys, and just have that sort of that attitude with the kids, I think that'd be a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like it's pretty amazing.
Trying.
And let's make it clear too that you're not just going to get a concussion from sports, right? We've talked a lot about sports.
Correct.
That's because that's your story. But just like I was talking about my client, there's car accidents. There's a lot of different ways you can get a concussion. So
Correct.
people, I guess sports are the most likely for you to get hit over and over again and versus just a one-off car accident. But
Yeah. Yeah. All different ways. You can fall and hit your head on the ice. I'm just walking out of your house.
yeah.
Skiing. You're in Colorado, Tawny.
Yes.
I would say there's
Yeah.
a lot of concussion from skiing.
Oh, I'm sure. When I first started snowboarding, I don't even remember exactly what happened. I caught one of the edges of the boards and had what we call a yard sale. My gloves went flying, my hat
Uh,
went flying, all the things. And that wouldn't surprise me if I had some type of a concussion from that. That was
yeah.
terrible. I had
Yeah.
whiplash, so I probably had a
Yeah.
concussion.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. So lots of different ways. I do wear a helmet now. I didn't
Yeah,
one
better.
time.
You better.
So with helmets, are they still working on improving them, or can they only do so much at the end of the day?
I don't know the exact answer, but I believe they are.
I'm
I think,
sure they're going to continue to try to
yeah,
make them better and better. I just wonder if there's eventually a threshold that like you can only do so much if you're getting hit that hard.
for sure. Obviously, I would like to think technology changes and
Yeah.
improves throughout the years.
But I also think some of these sports are getting more aggressive too. Like you see football now versus football 20 years ago. Those guys are way more aggressive than they used to be.
Yeah, yeah. It's sports are great, football is great, like I said, but there's got to be proper steps when things happen and awareness to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lewis, this conversation has been very enlightening and very wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me and telling me your story. Do you have any parting words for my listeners?
Yeah, I think it's a quick little piece, but
Yeah.
you only have one brain.
Mm,
And I think that's a very important thing for a young kid to hear.
yes. Yes. Parents tell your kids they only have one brain.
Only have one brain.
I think that's
And
so
guess
good
what?
for what?
And if it doesn't work out in in
Mm,
in playing the sport that you want, or even if it does work out and you play 20 years in the NFL or NHL or NBA or whatever it might be, you still only have one brain when you're done. So you can't play your whole life. So
yeah.
I think that's just very important to, and I wish I heard that because it's been a ride.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sorry that you had to go through all that, and I'm glad that it wasn't worse for you. Obviously, still life-changing, and that's always really hard. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but you are thriving now, it sounds like. So that's amazing.
Thank
Pushed
you.
through it. So yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And this was a great
Yeah.
conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Tawny. I'm excited for what's next. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
it.
Maybe we'll do a follow-up episode on you in a year or something, and we'll see what's going on.
Follow-up episode, and we got to feature a little statistical analysis on the brother duos.
Yes. I'm so curious about that.
All right.
All right, Lewis, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the stories shared, please consider following us on your preferred podcast platform. Your ratings and reviews make a huge difference. They help us reach more listeners and continue bringing you engaging, insightful content. We appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Until next time, keep listening, growing, and sharing.